Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we recap Week 9 of the 2022 CFL season. But really quickly, before we get started, if you want to support the channel, as always, be sure to hit like and subscribe. And with that said, let's get started with today's video. So not exactly the most entertaining week of football in the world. Not even one-score game on the week out of the 4 games that we saw. But I think we learned something about all of these teams this week. So we'll start with the first game of the week, which was Montreal and Winnipeg, with Winnipeg winning this game 35-20. And this game, by the score, is very misleading because it was actually tied going into the fourth quarter of this one. Montreal actually had a chance to take the lead with a 50-yard field goal that they missed, and ultimately that was the turning point. Winnipeg just put on the gas and was able to score multiple touchdowns in the fourth quarter to really pull away in this one. So we'll start from the Montreal perspective first of all. And, you know, this is just the same old story for this team this year. They have just not been able to close late in games. They have been a very competitive team this year. They have had several of these games where it's like they had a really good chance of winning. They had the game there for the taking, and they just could not find a way to make the crucial plays in the fourth quarter. I think this team, along with Hamilton, these guys right here, they just have lacked composure in the fourth quarter, just not having that killer instinct to take over and win games late. And I think a big problem for Montreal so far this season is that their offensive playmakers outside of Eugene Lewis have not really stepped up this year. And guys like Jake Winnipeg, he's had a really disappointing year this year. He was one of the best receivers in the CFL last year. I believe he led the league in receiving touchdowns, but he has been nowhere to be found this year. I believe he just crossed over 100 yards the other week in terms of the entire season. So, you know, just really disappointing from this Montreal offense. They need to get more from those guys if they want to be a successful team and make a push for the playoffs here. And honestly, you know, I think that is the biggest thing weighing down this offense right now, because Eugene Lewis is doing his part. He's looking like the best receiver in the CFL, in my opinion. But, you know, when you don't have those other elements, you know, Reggie White's been okay as that second receiver for them. I think he's been their second best receiver on the year. But I think that not a lot of other guys have really stepped up, and I think that is a major problem for Montreal going forward, along with the untimely mistakes on defense. I think that has been a huge issue for Montreal, and these issues will have to be corrected going forward if they want to make a push, again, like I said, for the playoffs. Now, as for Winnipeg, it wasn't their best day on Thursday night, but it didn't matter because they really asserted their dominance in the fourth quarter like they have several times this season. They don't often blow teams out, and honestly, by the final score of this one, this is probably one of their most lopsided wins of the year. But, you know, this was not a close and easy game for them. And I think that Zach Collaros, you know, wasn't his best day. He had 3 interceptions in this one, and ultimately he made the plays at the end of the game that were able to pull out on top. But honestly, I think Winnipeg is a vulnerable team in some respects, but at the same time, they're just so good at closing games in the fourth quarter. They have so many elements. They can beat you in so many different ways with defense, pass rush, great secondary play, a running game that is starting to get going a little bit more as the weeks go on. And again, like I said, Zach Collaros making those plays late in games like he's been doing the last 2 years here. So honestly, Winnipeg, not too much to say that hasn't already been said about them. They're out to a 9-0 start. I believe the best start in CFL history to start a season is 11-0. So really good chance, I think, of happening because they got Montreal next week, and then I think they finally have their first bye week. So, you know, they'll have a good chance of you know, getting to 11-0 and potentially getting to 12-0 and having the best start to start a CFL season ever. So really looking forward to seeing if we get history here in the 2022 CFL season with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now moving on to the second game of the week, which is the Calgary Stampeders and the Ottawa Redblacks, with the Calgary Stampeders winning a very sloppy game, 17-3, and there wasn't a single offensive touchdown scored in this game. The only touchdown scored by Titus Wall, defensive back for the Calgary Stampeders, on a pick 6 of Ottawa Redblacks quarterback Caleb Evans. And we'll just start from Ottawa's perspective, first of all. And, you know, this was just such a letdown game for them because I didn't expect them to beat Calgary on Friday night, but I expected them to look a little bit better than this. Coming off their first win of the season, I thought they would be energized. And Calgary did not play well in this game, really at all, on offense. And Ottawa just couldn't get anything going. To see them come out so flat offensively and see Caleb Evans crater down to having one of these terrible games where I think he only had like 30 passing yards in some point in the second half. So, just really disappointing. Nick Arbuckle actually got to see the field, but he didn't fare much better, throwing a couple of interceptions. He got to move the ball a little bit more, but I don't know how much if that is due to Calgary playing a little bit more of a prevent defense towards the end of the game. So, I don't know what's going to happen with the Red Blacks going forward. They sank to 1-7, so missed opportunity for them, but in a dreadful Eastern Division, they are still not out of it. And then from the Calgary perspective, I think the defense has been incredibly underrated for this team this year. They have been so good in a lot of games, and I don't think a lot of people have paid attention to it. I really like their linebacking core. I think it's one of the best linebacking cores in the league, with Jameer Thurman, who has slid over from the weak side linebacker position that he played last year to play the middle linebacker position, which has been an incredibly impressive transition. He has really been an excellent player and has allowed them to play a little bit faster in that linebacking core. He's a little bit lighter of a guy than you usually see at that middle linebacker position, and he can cover a lot more grass. So it really helps them coverage-wise that they have a guy that was playing weak side, playing in the middle. And then Cameron Judge, that was one of the best trades of the offseason. Not only does this help them ratio-wise, but it has helped them, just from a talent perspective, because Cameron Judge has really recaptured his form that he showed a couple of years ago in Saskatchewan. So, I'm really happy to see this defense playing so well. A guy like Brad Muhammad has been a revelation in this secondary. He has been all over the place. He was a guy that was only played a handful of games for the Red Blacks last year, and I kind of wrote him off in my roster review. I didn't really think he was going to make the team, but he has really stepped up, took hold of a starting job in this secondary, and he has been probably their best player back there so far this season. So that's the positive news for Calgary. But on the other hand, I think this offense really needs to start getting it going. Bo Levi Mitchell, he had a lot of off throws in this one where I thought, he really should have hit an easy target, but he just missed it for whatever reason. I think the mechanics maybe got a little bit sloppy on a couple of those throws. But there were also a couple of occasions, like we saw a couple of weeks ago, where he put it right on the money, and his receivers are just not coming away with catches. And I think this Bo Levi Mitchell and Kamar Jordan combination that has been so successful for this Calgary Stampeders team is really hurting them right now, because you're seeing Kamar Jordan get a significant target share in the offense, which he really should, because he has been a superstar receiver in this league, but he is not coming down with those key catches that we have been accustomed to seeing him make. And I think there's been a couple of games where he's had like 7 or 8 targets and only came down with 1 or 2 receptions. So that can't happen, because that will really stall the offense. The CFL, very execution-based game, and it's really important for receivers to catch a high percentage of their targets. So, I think that connection is really hurting this Calgary Stampeders offense right now more than it's helping. So I think I'm looking for that to improve going forward if they can get him, Reggie Bagleton, Malik Henry, who's been a great addition this year in terms of being a breakout guy for this offense, Kadeem Carey. Get all of these star players that, on paper have been star players in this league. If they can get those guys going at the same time, I think that is going to be a really dangerous offense there in Calgary. But they have yet to do that so far this season, so I'm still waiting to see it. Then moving on to our third game of the week, which was the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts, with the Toronto Argonauts winning the game 34-20 in a game, again, that looked a lot closer than the final score ended up coming out as. And starting from the Hamilton perspective, another fourth quarter collapse, and this may be the worst fourth quarter team I have ever seen in any football, really. And they have not won one fourth quarter this season, I don't believe. I can't explain how poorly they played in the fourth quarter this season. It's really baffling to me, because the first 3 quarters of the game, they're arguably one of the better teams in the CFL, but in the fourth quarter, they just, whatever happens, it's just they flip the switch off and they just start collapsing. They just cannot stop the bleeding, and I just don't, I can't explain it for what's happened to the Tiger Cats this season in the fourth quarter. I think the Braylon Addison injury that happened in the first quarter of this one, when they were really rolling, I think offensively they were up 10-0 at that point, and Addison, twists his ankle in the dirt, and it's very disappointing to see because he missed most of last year because of an injury as well. He only played 3 games last year, and looks like his season's cut short again this year, and that's really going to hurt this Tiger Cats offense because they don't really have much of a short to intermediate passing game or guys that can gain yards after the catch. Most of the receivers that the Tiger Cats have are big play, possession type receivers like Stephen Dunbar. Tim White can do a little bit of stuff in the intermediate and the short game, but he's not exactly the type of player that Braylon Addison is. So I think it's going to hurt this Tiger Cats offense pretty significantly to not have him out there, especially with how much they've been struggling. And, the last thing here for the Tiger Cats is that this defense just seems like it lacks some kind of edge in the fourth quarter. Whatever reason, I think if it be play calling or just the players on the field, they're just not executing late in games, and I don't know what's happening. I feel like they're kind of backing off in fourth quarters of games. They're not really blitzing the quarterback as much. They're doing a lot of 3-man rushes and prevent kind of stuff, and that's not the kind of defense that you want to be playing in the CFL, because you can't run out the clock like you can in the NFL, with the 40-second play clock. So very disappointing as a Tiger Cats fan to see another result like this, but honestly, at the end of the day, this is kind of the game I expected from both of these teams. I thought Toronto would pull it out pretty close at the end, but another fourth quarter collapse for Hamilton, and they will like to correct that going forward as they prepare for a rematch next week with the Argos. And then for the Argos, they overcame early game struggles in this game. Andrew Harris couldn't get anything going in the first quarter of this game. The passing offense was stalled, but they made the adjustments and really showed you that they have so many playmakers on this offense. A guy like Cam Phillips has been really good for them this year. He was an XFL star in 2020, and he led that league in touchdowns and yards that year before that league was ultimately canceled. So he's been a really good find for this offense, and he was actually in training camp with the Tiger Cats last year, and it's just crazy how much depth that this receiving core has. They even have a guy like Jawan Brescison, who's currently injured right now, not playing. Eric Rogers played his first game of the season this year, so they have a crazy amount of depth in that wide receiver room, and I think that's really what separates them right now from a team like Hamilton, because Hamilton has a couple of really good playmakers, but they don't have the depth and just the depth of talent that Toronto really has in that receiving core. So honestly, I don't know what's going to happen with this East Division going forward, but I think Toronto has its best shot at winning it because of all these playmakers that they have on offense, and that's really helped McLeod Bethel-Thompson, who has avoided having that really dreadful game this year. In years past, he's had that 3-4 interception game that really sinks you, and he has yet to have that this year, which is a great sign for this Argos team going forward. I believe he's third in the league right now in terms of starting quarterbacks, in terms of quarterback efficiency rating. So, really good sign to see that from McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Hopefully, he can keep it up as the season goes along here, and it's great to see the Argos at 4-3, and on top of the East Division, they have a pretty good hold on it now, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can win in Hamilton next week. Traditionally, a pretty hard place for them to win, but they did come out with a win last year in one of the matchups. They went to Tim Hortons Field, so it'll be interesting to see. And then the last game of the week between the Edmonton Elks and the BC Lions, with the BC Lions destroying the Edmonton Elks again, 46-14 here. And quickly from the Edmonton point of view, first of all, they got off to a decent start, but they just couldn't keep up with the explosiveness that BC provides, and their defense really had no answer for them in this one. So it just doesn't seem like Edmonton is prepared to play BC again this season, so hopefully they don't play them again. And then from the BC point of view, I think you have to start saying, is Nathan Rourke NFL bound? And it's going to be very interesting to see after the season what the level of interest in Nathan Rourke is around the National Football League, and if he's going to be a one and done here as a starter here in the CFL, because he is putting up historic numbers so far this season. And this week, I think, really shifted the MOP conversation for me, because last week I was on the fence and I would have said Caleris, but now I think clearly Rourke is in the lead, because you have to look at the statistics, and he has by far been the best quarterback in the CFL so far this season. He is going to put up 40 plus touchdowns on pace for anyways. I think the last guy to do it was Henry Burris with Hamilton back in 2014 or 2012 or something like that. But, you know, I think Nathan Rourke has been outstanding for the BC Lions this year. There's not much else we can say about him. He's just been outstanding. And, you know, I think if he continues to play like this, he's going to be in the NFL next year, and BC is going to be stuck looking for another quarterback. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. And I think another guy you have to mention for BC is Dominic Rhymes, who's having an excellent season, especially with Brian Burnham, who was out for a long time with injury. He finally came back into the lineup this week, and Dominic Rhymes still was the star of the show with 3 touchdown receptions. And, you know, he's really become that guy that he was back in 2019 with Ottawa, where he put up 1,000 yards on a really, really bad team with horrible quarterback play. And, you know, he has a great quarterback this time, and he is putting up great numbers and has arguably been the best receiver in the CFL this season. So great on Dominic Rhymes, who really has stepped up this year in the wake of that Brian Burnham injury and has really captured his role in this offense and become a favorite target of Nathan Rourke. And finally, the next thing for BC is a matchup with Calgary, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that game, because I think it could really shift a lot of things in terms of the standings. Calgary with 2 losses, both against Winnipeg, and then BC only with the 1 loss, and it was against Winnipeg. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup, because I think these are the 2nd and 3rd best teams in the league. I think most people would agree right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how that's sorted out. And I cannot wait for that next week. But with that said, that is going to be the end of today's video, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Once again, my name is Jason. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Huskies Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I greatly appreciate it, everybody. And with that said, hope everyone has a great day. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.